Kalian merasa hebat, biar ku yang lemah. Merasa paling terbaik, tapi cara kalian licik. Maka kita kaget skill otodidak, perbaikin diri pandai. Jangan senang dulu, semua tinggal waktu. Ada yang manis, tapi itu bukan susu. Baru haus kuliah, datang sekolah dia jagoan. Maaf godang, sorry godang, abang bang jago.
You've probably heard about the recent events in Myanmar.
Overseas now protests against the military coup, claiming more lives in Myanmar. At least 18 people reportedly killed, the bloodiest day.
Now, international pressure is growing on Myanmar's ruling military to stop its deadly
Hundreds of
Let's
talk about the coup. The military announcing a state of emergency.
Myanmar's 10-year journey to democracy.
So, in the beginning of 2021, Myanmar has gone through a coup. As we can see in the beginning of the video, military officers have dismantled the democracy and reinstituted the military rule. But the sad reality is that the Burmese people have only experienced democracy from 1948 until 1962, and 2011 until this year. Which means that for around 50 years, the Burmese have lived under a military rule. And this is no simple military rule. It's a racist, anti-liberal, anti-democratic stratocracy. Until 2011, the military rule constantly repressed anyone who would try to stand up against the government. This means that police brutality, unlawful arrests and political persecution were an everyday activity. And alongside that, women were and still are constantly discriminated, and even child soldiers are a real thing there. The United Nations have for several times tried to warn Myanmar to stop the violations, but the reality is that nothing changed. However, there's still one more problem that for me is the real problem in Myanmar. For anyone who isn't aware, over 85% of the population in Myanmar is Buddhist, while around only 6% are Christian and only 4% are Muslims. The Rohingya Muslims are a really hated ethnicity in Myanmar. So the fact that for over 50 years the military ruled the country is one more reason for the Rohingya to be discriminated. The Rohingya Muslims have never been acknowledged as Burmese, being officially denied national citizenship by the 1982 Citizenship Law. This and many other actions by the Burmese government led to many conflicts and a civil war in the Rakhine state. This war forced over 800,000 Rohingya Muslims to leave the country, becoming refugees in countries like Bangladesh and many others. So one would assume that with the 2011 democratic transition, things would go better for the Rohingya. But that's not the case.
Can you explain Aung San Suu Kyi's position? I mean, she is a Nobel Peace Laureate. She has long now defended the Burmese military in its genocide against the people, the Rohingya Muslims, and actually went to The Hague to testify on the military's behalf, the military which imprisoned her and she fought against for decades.
Well, obviously, she has thrown her lot in with the military, and I think she was showing domestic public opinion that she hates the Rohingya as much as many others do. I mean, let's remember that this is one of the most hated, persecuted minorities in the world.
Even with a democracy, the reality is that the Rohingya Muslims still were very much discriminated and still are until now. The government of Gambia reported an application instituting proceedings and requesting provisional measures into the International Court of Justice, claiming that Myanmar has not been respecting the Convention on the Prevention and Punishment of the Crime of Genocide, with several acts of genocide against the Rohingya Muslims. Even through a democracy, the reality for a minority like the Rohingya was constant discrimination and violence. And this is why the current situation in Myanmar goes way beyond the coup. There are many humanitarian problems in Myanmar still to be resolved.